Hello everyone, Miguel Garcia here with the Napa County Resource Conservation District, and we're here today at Huachica Creek Demonstration Vineyard, and we're going to talk today about soil sampling, which is a critical part of integrated nutrient management plan. The first step when you are getting ready to soil sample is to identify how many samples you need to collect per vineyard. And this is going to be dependent on your soil type, your variety of grapes you're growing, the management, topography, slope, and the idea is to find representative areas that are 20 acres or less, where everything is pretty much the same, where the soil is managed the same way, the slope is the same, the topography is the same, everything pretty much the same, so that would represent that particular area. And again, as long as it's less than 20 acres, you will get an opportunity to represent that area. Once you identify that block or section of your vineyard where you know that everything is the same and you're getting ready to sample, the way that we do it is you're going to need to do what we call 10 subsamples. So in this case right here, this map right here shows where we are. This stars right here represents where we are standing right now, and then the rest in the back of me right now is north of this block. So in here we identified 10 spots that we're going to sample within this representative area. So this block right here, which we call block F, is the same slope, it's the same variety, has been managed the same way. So this is our sampling area. Within the sampling area, we're going to collect 10 subsamples around the area, and the way that I like doing it is by to represent the entire area is picking 3 sections at north, 3 sections at south, and then 4 sections somewhere in the middle of the property. So by doing this grid, I make sure that we represent the entire block as properly as we can. So the idea would be to go to each of these 10 sections, dig a hole, as I'm going to demonstrate in just a second, and all of these samples are going to go in a bucket, and they're going to get mixed, and I'm going to show you in a minute how to do that. So once we mix all of these subsamples and we put them together, then that represents this block, and that's the sample that we will be sending to the lab. So that represents 10 subsamples represent 1 sampling area. So I'll show you right now what we need to do once we go to each of these different subsample areas. So we have different tools that we can use for the job. If you can get your hands in an auger, this can help you get a nice intact core of the sample. You can buy in any gardening store, you can buy one of these where you have to push it in, and you can get also a section of the soil like that. You can use just an old school shovel to do this. You can also utilize a soil knife or a gardening tool like this. I personally like the soil knife just because it's strong, and it already comes with a measuring tool here, so that I know exactly how deep I'm digging. When we go to each subsample section, we need to dig down to 6 inches. And in vineyards, typically we have 2 different managements within a single block. We have the under vine management, which it tends to be differently than in between the vine rows. So it is important to sample those 2 sections separately, because since the management is different, the results in the soil analysis will also be different. So what I like doing is I like having 2 separate buckets, and I like leveling them, so I have middle and then I have the undervine. So that way I know exactly which sample I'm putting where. I carry these buckets to every single one of the 10 sections that I showed you on the map, and for each section we'll go ahead and we have to dig down to 6 inches. And the key of this method is to make sure that, because we're going to go to 10 sections and mix them up in a bucket, we need to make sure that every time we go to that section, we are collecting the same amount of soil. Otherwise, we're going to under or over represent specific areas. So the key is to go to 6 inches, make sure we always collect the same amount of soil and that the same amount of soil goes in the bucket from each section. So once we get to the section, in this case we're in the middle, we're gonna clear out the vegetation a little bit, and then we're gonna, in this case using the soil knife, we can just start digging. And the way that I like doing it with the soil knife is just sort of creating a hole, and my knife is exactly 6 inches, so I know that as long as I go this deep, I'm getting to the depth that I need to get. So I start by digging a semi-wide hole here. Once I have a hole that is somewhat wide and that I know that is 6 inches deep, then I put my knife on the edge of that hole, and then I just go down. And by doing this, I get exactly the 6 inches. So this is the top of the soil, this is the bottom of the soil. I'm getting exactly the 6 inches that I need. And if I do it this method everywhere I go for the 10 subsamples, I will be collecting exactly the same amount of soil. So then I make sure that I have the right bucket. So this is for the middle, and I'm gonna go ahead and put the soil here, because we're gonna go to 10 different spots, and we really don't need to send too much of the soil to the lab. You don't need a lot. The amount of soil that I collected in my knife is more than plenty. If I go to all those 10 spots to collect it, you'll end up with extra soil. Once you have your bucket, you already went to the 10 spots within that representative block, then we have to mix it to make sure that it is representative of the entire block. So I just go with my knife, and you can start cutting down some of the big aggregates of soil that are there. And if the soil is somewhat moist, it's going to be a little bit difficult to break down, but just keep working it and keep mixing it up until you can be certain that it's all even throughout. So in this case, again, using the soil knife really helps to do the job, because it's easy to just mix it up. So once I'm happy and I think that the soil has been mixed thoroughly, then we need to put it in a Ziploc bag that will go to the lab. So most labs won't require you more than a quart Ziploc bag full of soil. So that's what we try to utilize, but consult with your particular lab of choice to see what they want you to do. Plastic Ziploc bags tends to be the most common way of doing it out there, but consult with your lab. So now we have this soil that is mixed, and it represents 10 sections of this block. So now we're gonna fill up the Ziploc bag with this sample, and sometimes using your hands is just the best way of doing it. Every now and then, if your soil is healthy enough, you'll find little guys living in the soil. So I personally try to put them back if I find them. I don't want them to go in the mail into a lab if I can keep them here in the vineyard. So once I have my bag completely filled with the soil, then we want to make sure that it's closed properly. Now this bag now here represents this block, which we're calling block F in this case here. I'm gonna label it, put the name of the vineyard, the name of the block, and make sure that I label it as the middle, because that's where we collected the samples. I'm gonna repeat the same process now with the soil that I collected from the undervine. Again, I'm gonna fill up the plastic bag, I'm gonna label it as undervine, and then send it to my lab of choice. Some labs may require you to put this bag inside another Ziploc bag just to prevent any soil to be lost in the way that it's shipped. But again, consult with your local lab. Once we have this, I typically just put it on an express shipping box from the USPS. I like that because it gets there faster. It has a tracking number so that you can see where your samples are. If you don't send your samples within the same day that you collect them, then you can leave them in a cool, dry place, as long as you leave the bag open to prevent any moisture and any excessive heat to build up. And then once you're ready to ship it, then you can just close the bag again and then put it in a normal box and send it to your lab of choice. This is pretty much the entire process that we do. once you select your different blocks, then you're gonna repeat this a lot more times until you sample all the areas that you wanna sample. So just to recap, each representative block was selected based on topography, soil management, soil type, soil texture. Once you identify areas that are more or less the same, as long as they are less than 20 acres, then you go ahead and select 10 subsections where you're gonna collect subsamples to put in the bucket and mix together. And I like doing it in a grid pattern, so I do 3 in the north, 3 in the south, and then 4 around the middle, so that we represent the entire area. And it is always recommended to do it in the middles and the undervine because of the differences in management. You will see differences in the soil analysis. So that pretty much concludes the way that we collect soil samples. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach me at miguel@naparcd.org. And if you have any questions, I'm always happy to come and talk to you, or if you would like me to do any live demonstrations for you and your crew. Thank you very much.